Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. How are you guys doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. Just want to say thank you to everybody. The last couple of weeks, we had a couple of glitches. 2 weeks ago, my poor producer pulled his shoulder out of the socket, so we couldn't go on live. And then the following week, last week, I had major unexpected plumbing issues that literally took them all week for them to figure out what it was because I live in an apartment building and they were here every single day working on trying to find the problem. Thankfully, they found the problem and it's all fixed. So I'm back on today. So the guests that I originally had scheduled have rescheduled. So they'll be with me in probably a month or so. So thank you guys who have reached out and are like, oh, your show, is it live? No, not today. So that's what happened. But today I am here live and I have author of Sacred Magic. She is a high priestess and the founder of WitchFest, Tahverlee Anglen, and she's going to join me in just a couple of minutes. To my regulars, again, thank you so much for reaching out and asking me, where are you? What's going on? I'm back today. I really appreciate you coming each week to my show and all the wonderful emails I get telling me how much you enjoy my show and my guests. It really means a lot to me. And if you're new to my show, I just want to say welcome. I hope you enjoy today's show. And I always have guests on my show. I like to have conversations with really interesting people doing really interesting things. So you can catch up on any of my old shows if you go to Om Times Radio in the archives on your favorite podcasting platform or on postcardstotheuniverse.com under podcasts, and you will see each show I have and the guest that I'm talking to that day. So I hope that you do go back and listen to some of my shows. I've had some amazing, amazing guests. A little bit about me. I'm a photographer. I'm an author. I am a artist. And sorry, my phone. I swear to God, it's like I tell everybody, don't call me on Wednesday at this time. And guess what? My phone always rings when I'm on the radio. So, anyway, sorry, I got distracted. My book, I have 30 manifesting stories and photographs of I call them manifesting postcards that I had people create a postcard, sort of like a vision board. They send it to me and I photograph it. And when their manifestation shows up in the reality, I share their stories in my book. And I'm also doing a weekly blog, and I have a second book that I'm working on right now that hopefully will be published by the end of this year. That's the goal. So we'll see. So, yeah, it's really, really cool. And if you're interested in making a manifesting postcard, please do. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I tell you how to create one, where to send it. If you go to postcardstotheuniverse.com, they're so much fun to make. And seriously, just putting all of our energy, it's kind of like spell casting, which we're going to talk about a little bit more today. So, yeah, we are putting out what we want to bring back to us. And when it shows up in our reality, then we can share your story if you're interested. So, let me know. All right, let me get to my guest today, Tahverlee Anglen. She is a high priestess of the Moon Temple Mystery School. I love that. She guides individuals through self discovery, witchcraft, and spiritual empowerment, a true priestess of the wild. Tahverlee walks with the fire of Athena in her veins, weaving threads of ancient mysteries and modern day magic. She is a conduit between the underworld and the cosmos, an initiate of sacred rites and Celtic mysteries. Tahverlee facilitates transformative experiences through her books, rituals, courses, and events. She's also a speaker, social impact entrepreneur, and host of a top rated podcast. As the founder of WitchFest, the largest event of its kind, she empowers others to reclaim their power and craft the realities, showing that magic belongs not only in sacred circles, but also in the everyday world. And if you want to find out more about her, and of course, her book, Sacred Magic, A Witch's Guide to Earth Wisdom, you can go to her website, which is moontempleschool.com. That's moontempleschool.com. Welcome, Tahverlee. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And wow, that was a mouthful. It's always interesting to
Right.
hear bios. I'm
I
like, oh,
know,
yeah,
right?
all the things. Yeah, thank you
All the
for
things
having
I
me. And
do,
oh, I
right?
know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's both of us, you as well. And I love the postcards, the manifesting postcards that you're doing. I think it's
Oh,
so
thank
fantastic.
you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it. I get so excited when I get one in the mail because I feel like it's so sacred to the person who created it, right? Like I the way after I photograph them, I have them all in sleeves, plastic sleeves where I'm keeping them nice, and it's like it's like a whole thing because I feel like it is kind of like spell casting in a way, right? We're putting our desires out there, we're putting we want in the world, and it's like, okay, bring this back to me. And I just think that that's so cool. And I think we do it a lot more than people realize that we do that. People get really weird when you hear the word witch or witchcraft. Really means what witchcraft and all the work that you do means.
Well, first, I would love to talk about how the postcards that people are creating is if they're mailing it, like they're putting a lot of time and intention into it. And when it's like pulling back the arrow and seeing a target in front of you. Whatever that target is for you, when you put time, attention, and energy into it, especially with something specific like writing it down and then
Mhm.
dropping it in the mail, those are action steps after you have put your intention down in writing. And listen, our words, whether they're written or spoken, when they're done with deep intention, that is the base of a spell. And of course, we can add lots of layers to it and either make it more complicated, or deeper, but really that's the basic part of any spell work is to know what it is that you want and actually create it, put it out into the universe. And so that is a spell. And I think that that's a really great way to look at it because a lot of people that are uncomfortable with the word witch don't realize that we're just working with energy. If you study magic, you're studying transformation. And that's, I talk about that a lot in my book. And I know it has actually surprised a lot of people that really the basics of spell casting is the basics of putting energy, time, and attention behind your intention. And there's 1,000 ways to do that. There's not a right way or a wrong way. I mean, you can go down lots of different rabbit holes of different types of spells you can do. But if you stay pure to yourself and you put your energy into something that you desire and you put action behind it and passion and you hold that focus, almost like, when you're pulling the arrow back on the bow, if you could, the longer you can hold that focus and release it, the more powerful the outcome is.
Oh, totally. Oh, thank you for saying that. I so agree. And I think people get so nervous because witch has such a bad connotation, and if you watch any movies and then they show witches, there's always like the dark magic or all that kind of stuff. But people don't realize that when you're praying to God, whatever your God is, you're putting an
Hmm.
intention out there, just as the same thing. And when you curse, like somebody cuts you off and you're driving and you say F you know what I mean? You just sent out a curse. People don't
That's why they call it
realize that.
cursing.
Exactly. But then you put it in the subject matter of like what we're talking about here today, in intentional working with the energies, because that's what we're doing, working with the energies intentionally. People are like, "Oh, yeah, that's true if you describe it like that." And I just find it interesting that people who are like, so, "Oh, you practice in dark magic." No, I don't. I don't practice in anything dark. I'm trying to bring more light
Hmm.
to the world, right? That's what I want to do. That's why I have this show. That's why I have guests like you and my other guests, because that's what we're doing. We're trying to help people have the lives that they deserve. that we know they deserve, because that's the life we want for ourselves. So how did you get into all of the work that you're doing? Were you always into that as a kid, or or
Mm.
or is it something that kind of like you fell into later on?
I wouldn't say that I fell into it, and I wouldn't say it's something that I always did. I'll find my way in the middle, and I'll tell you the story in terms of how a lot of us experience, right, our spiritual gifts or our inner knowing field, because that's really what I'll say awakened prior to me truly understanding how to work with energy, is like what was happening
Mhm.
inside of me. And it was this, deep call, or deep question of, in my life, is this all there is? Right. And that was
Right.
while I was, chasing the right job, had the big title, had the right house, had the right car, had all the right things, to check all the boxes of what society tells us. This is how we're going to be happy. If you do these things, right? Here's a prescription, you do these things, and you're going to live a fulfilling, happy life, and you're going to be successful. And in my book, I actually say, they say society tells you you're going to be so successful that they're going to pin a ribbon to your cold corpse if you check all these boxes. And
Right.
and I think what happens to all of us is, whether it's through something traumatic or some type of change, or even just this like deep unfulfillment of, are all these things that I'm chasing, is that all there is? And for me, the
Yeah.
moment that I spoke that question aloud, what happened was, first of all, it's like I tore down all the veils around me. It's like I stepped out of the fog, and what I saw around me was something completely different. And then I went into the seeker stage of, okay, like, if it's not this, then what is it? And I started studying, and I started doing a lot of, I'll call it like spiritual self-development work, but deep into different types of mysteries. And then, as it does, a teacher came along, and I started my first initiate path as a high priestess. And it came to me through the most amazing way of like bumping into somebody at the gym that was another woman that had tattoos and was lifting heavy. And I told her, oh, this is what I've been doing. And as we got to know each other, she's like, oh, that's an altar. You just made an altar. And oh, that's magic what you're doing. And oh, that spirit guide that visited you while you were on a walk with your dog, that's what this is. You should join this class. And so I did. And at that time in my life, I was actually still like keeping everything I was doing private. It's almost like I
Right.
split myself into all these different pieces. And, the shamanic drumming I was doing after dark, I didn't talk about that in my weightlifting
Yeah.
communities. And I surely didn't talk, in it to any of my employers about the magic I was weaving on the weekends. And, I had this like fitness community and this professional community and this magical community, and all these pieces were separate. And it was great. I did, deep development, and I found this inner power inside of me, like this tiny little flame. And it's like every step I took, that flame just got bigger and bigger. And when the flame got bigger, then it burned away all the things that I had been trying to find happiness in. And
Mm.
as it does often with us, when you get to a place where you realize this over here is what's creating my happy magical life, why am I
Right.
afraid of judgment? Like, why am I afraid of talking about it? Why am I not merging my worlds? And that's when I first discovered what it truly means to have witch wounding, or we have programming about witches. And I went, deep into the underworld and explored what has happened to women that have been healers and have been midwives or have been the oracles in their societies, and then combining that with Hollywood and how that has crushed that word. And then
Yeah.
and then, right? And then
Mm.
I reclaimed the word.
Yeah.
And when I reclaimed the word, everything changed in my life. It's almost as if, it was easy for me to step out of the broom closet because I truly understood and knew what it meant. And, this is years, I'm shortening a very long story, right? This is
Sure.
years of me practicing in ritual and working in communities and being so connected to the earth and so connected to my spiritual gifts that I wondered, like, how is it possible that more people don't know about this? Like, how are we living from this place of just materialism and not living at this in this place of expansion and magic. How is that
Yeah.
possible? And when you get to that place, then I became less worried about what other people would think. But there was a time when I did the kind of official sit
Yeah.
down with some people that did not know yet what I had been doing in all my spare time and
It's
had some
true.
conversations. And
That's
I'll tell you the
great.
funniest thing is all the ways in which we think we're going to be judged is really us judging ourselves.
True.
Because I'll tell you, nobody around me cared 2 cents. They just
It's true.
didn't. Even my friends that are deeply religious, when we talked through how I practice and what my beliefs are, and it was just this eye-opening, I'll say maybe purpose-opening alignment.
Mhm.
Because at that point, I knew I was going to open a mystery school. I knew it was time for me
Mhm.
to carry these teachings forward. And by that time, I had done, 3 different initiate paths and different traditions, and I was still studying. And I still study now. I consider myself forever a student of the mysteries. And
Mhm.
yeah, and from there, everything just continued to expand. And I would say that lots of people feel the call or are ready to maybe ask that question, is this all there is?
Yeah.
And when you actually ask that question and want to know what's possible, what can you create? And I love that we're having this conversation so close to Beltane, right? Which is May 1st.
Mhm.
This is the return of
Yep.
the sun. This is of the whole year between yesterday and the end of the day tomorrow. This is the most auspicious time of the year in many different traditions and paths to truly tap into what does it mean to create what you desire.
Yeah.
And that
I
comes by
love
asking, is
that.
this all there is?
I love that so much because that's basically not the same journey, but basically the same questions, right? That's sort of my
Mm-hmm.
journey. And it's so funny that you say that because I have an altar in my house and I go on my patio a lot, especially during moons, and I do a lot of burning and whatever. And one of my neighbors one time said to me, she whispered it too. She goes, "Are you a witch?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess I am." Like just not even thinking about it, because it's not that I go around saying, "Hey, I'm a witch," but I guess yes, I am a witch. I do. I have a spell book. I actually have it out right now. I've been working on bookbinding, just for me because I enjoy it so much and putting spells in it and chants and drawing in it and just all the things that I love to do, like creating a big postcard, truthfully, but it's a whole book. Um, and it's funny how people just kind of approach it that way. And when they see my altar, I always notice because we have a lot of art openings where I live. I live in an artist community, and people, I open my doors when we're having an event, and people are always drawn to my altar. And
Mm-hmm.
I just find it so
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And you know who really loves it? Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, they love, "What is this? What is that? With their million
Mm-hmm.
questions, and I'm like, because I think kids are closer to magic that we are as adults. We
Or
lose a
it
lot of
hasn't
it.
been conditioned. It hasn't been conditioned out of them
Condition.
yet,
Yes.
right?
It
They haven't been
yes.
told to believe that that's scary or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah. So in your learning, you've become a high priestess. Can you share a little bit what a high priestess is and what she does? And you decided and tell us about your Moon Temple Mystery School.
Definitely, I would love to. um, I want to make a distinction between what some people might know as a high priestess, because a lot of people will associate that word with the tradition of Wicca, and
Yeah.
this is not that. So the
Okay.
tradition that I was initiated in as a high priestess is more based upon the Golden Dawn tradition, and I mean the old, ancient
Okay.
Golden Dawn tradition. So it's a 13-month path. It's 13 steps. Most initiate paths are 13 steps. And when you walk through the 13 steps, and this is, really important for anyone that really wants to dive deep into understanding magic, is it's not, I mean, you can cast spells that are kind of surface level or
Mhm.
I'll say smaller changes, but when you walk the path of a high priestess, you are going into the core of who you are to make those changes. So then a lot of the surface level change you might desire to make actually becomes less significant than the one that you do kind of at the soul and internal level. And that's why it's deep work, right? We go through each of the elemental temples, and I teach it as, not just the elements, but understanding what type of magic is used with each of the elements, because the elements themselves have spirits. It's more than just, should I have earth on the north of my altar and a feather on the, east of my altar? No, it's what does the properties and qualities of earth feel like both in my body and when my body is connected to that element, and then what kind of magic is associated to that element. And there's a lot, right? We go through deep studies. So we're basically taking all these little puzzle pieces of how energy in the world works and putting them with values and standards. And of course, there's one big piece that we also include, which is called alchemy. And that's the first step of the High Priestess path and the way that I teach it. And, alchemy itself is, again, that study of transformation. And in alchemy, we embrace and learn these full body rituals that include, holding your hands in a triangle position on your lower belly and then bringing it up above your head and calling in elemental forces through that triangle, and then creating a sacred circle to how we call in the elements. And we don't just call in the elements as high priestesses, we call in the watchtowers of the elements. And again, these are all with hand movements, and you're moving in circles and you're speaking words. And, this whole process of going from not knowing what's possible within you to knowing what's possible within you is a journey. And I'll say that the rituals we teach are really the foundational part. And I will tell you that all of the students that have gone through mystery school, I think this is our 5th or 6th year of the High Priestess Initiate Path, High Priest and High Priestess, none of them have ever fully stopped doing the rituals, even once they're done in initiation, because they're so powerful.
Yeah.
And there's
There's
nothing else
something
like
about
that.
rituals. There's something about when you're in doing a ritual that you can feel it. You can feel you're tapping into the energy. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I understand that.
And at WitchFest, I brought in a whole bunch of high priests and high priestesses from across the U.S., and we did the rituals on stage in front of, more than 10,000
Oh,
people each
wow.
night.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was fascinating because I was kind of concerned, whether or not people would take video and post it,
Right.
because these rituals are not available online. This is the kind of
Right.
teaching that is only given orally. And funny enough, if you look at the footage of the audience during the rituals, everybody lowered their camera. I'm
Hmm.
not joking. It's really this fascinating thing. Now, people were videoing us come out and, different
Sure.
parts of it. But the moment we started doing the rituals, it was almost like people were transfixed and their cameras went down. So again, if we look at magic as being the study of transformation, to me, of all the paths that I've walked and all the things that I teach, because I teach a lot of different ways to get to that path of transformation, the High Priest and the High Priestess path is by far the most powerful, that changes you at the root.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if somebody wanted to come and get some teachings from you, but they weren't maybe interested in being a high priestess, is there still things for them that courses they could take on Moon Temple Mystery School? Or is it
Yes, and that's
only to
exactly
help
why I
us?
do it. Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly why
Okay.
I teach lots of different things,
Oh,
specifically
that's
for that
great.
reason, because some people aren't ready to step into a
Sure.
13-step commitment, and you don't need to know anything to step into the path, but people feel like they want to test the waters a little. And for example, this summer, I'm doing what's called the Summer of Spirits. So we are spending 2 nights a month in ceremony and crossing the veil and communicating with our spirit guides. And we'll also communicate with, any loved ones that have passed, or land spirits. And we're even going to be working directly with the elemental spirits themselves. And everyone that's joining the Summer of Spirits is, meeting their animal spirit guide first. That's going to be on this journey with them. So I definitely do lots of different things. And I also find I have a witch school, which is, it used to be called Witch Power, but now it's Witch School. It's a monthly membership where people can join, and I go live there and provide so much, like those starter places when we first start seeking. Here's how to work with your
Mhm.
tarot or oracle deck. Here's some journal prompts. Here's a good idea of what you can do this moon that's appropriate this time of year. And, here's a spell for you to try if you desire this thing. It's like I've built this library for people to go to. So I definitely feel like it's important to meet anyone where they're at. So wherever you are,
We're
we have
at.
space for you.
Yeah, I love that too because that sounds like that you could do online. You could do from anywhere. You don't have to be in person. Well, obviously,
Correct.
WitchFest is in person, right? WitchFest is in person. So,
We
so
don't
you want
we don't
to.
actually have Witch Fest scheduled in the future. That was something that we have done in the past, and I get asked
Okay.
about it all the time. So I'll just say right now, I don't know if we will when and where
Yeah.
that will happen again.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of the classes that I offer are all online, and in most cases, unless it's a really big personal sharing part of any class, most of them are recorded as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because nowadays, with the internet, it's our options to explore things that we're interested in is so much greater, right? That we can reach out. Like,
Hmm.
if somebody wants to work with you, they don't have to be where you live to come and connect with you so that they could learn more about magic and spell casting and the rituals and all of it and the journey if they want to go through it. Okay, I just looked at the clock. I see that we're at the halftime mark. So let's take our break here. And then I have so many more questions for you when we come back. Stay tuned, everybody, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
Welcome back. If you're just joining me, I have Tahverlee Anglen with me today. She is a high priestess, the founder of WitchFest, and she is an author and has, which I think is so fascinating, the Moon Temple Mystery School. So if you want to learn more about witchcraft and magic, I highly recommend reaching out to her to find out more of what you can learn. So I was looking during the break and I was reading about you, and you talk about how you walk with the fire of Athena in your veins. Can you tell us a little about the god? Tell us a little bit about the goddess Athena and what that means. I thought that was
Yes,
fascinating.
I have a. I'll tell you through this a really interesting story of something that occurred to
Okay.
me and something that I experienced. And I spent a lot of time working beyond the veil, meaning moving myself out of this 3D experience and allowing myself to experience higher levels of consciousness. And when we do that, it's almost like a radio dial changes, and who we can communicate and what we can communicate with changes. And we're still in our body because we're still incarnated as humans, but we can take our consciousness someplace else. Now, early in my days as a high priestess, I didn't always know that I could, keep one foot in both worlds all the time. I felt like I more needed to do big ceremonial work to go into those altered states or trance states. And one of the ways that I used to do that was I would be in a certain part of nature at a certain time of day, and I would complete a deep meditation. I would even say it's more than meditation, it's more like self-trance work. And then I would move my body and see what would come to me in those moments. And there was one day, I remember it was like it was yesterday. This is so wild. I was walking through this area that I walk through when I go into these trance states, and there's a bunch of trees that kind of reach over and touch each other at the top. So it creates a little bit of a tunnel. And as I was walking through that, I felt like there was like I had walked into a fridge. So it just got super cold underneath those trees. And when I continued through to the other side of the trees, everything in my visual field was different. I mean, completely different. I had stepped into another time, and I physically paused because I was physically moving. My human eyes were open,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I looked around me, and I'm like, what is happening? Is this like a ripple in a tear in the matrix? Like, what's happening? And I giggled a little and kind of felt myself shake, and then looked around, and everything kind of came back to normal. And then every step I took, it came back again, and it was almost like I was switching between this holographic place and real time. And so I let it happen. I always want to remind everyone that when we work from altered states, we're still choosing. So it's not as if we're being taken over and taken someplace else. We're choosing. So I chose to stay in that altered state. And as I'm walking along on this dirt road, I felt weird around my skin and my body. And I looked down and I could see myself wearing like a breastplate. And I could see myself with these gloves on, and I felt kind of bloody. Like I could look and see that I was bloody and I was dirty and it was kind of smelly. And I was walking down this dirt road, and it was definitely a much older time. And when I looked up in this place around me, lined alongside the streets were a whole bunch of people dressed in, what we would expect to see, 1,000 years ago. And they were not comfortable with me. Like they were looking at me with a little bit of fear. And I looked down at myself again. And I'm like, wow, what's happening? And I started to have this inner knowing, meaning almost like my thoughts became someone else's. And the thoughts were that I defend these people. Like how I wish they weren't scared of me. I understand why they are, because I defend these people. I'm the warrior for this community. And as I'm walking and walking, I felt and saw an entire life of someone that wasn't me. And my first human thought in there was that, I'm living a past life. That was kind of my first thought, because it feels like that. I've done some Akashic Records work, so I knew what that felt like. And I kept walking, and then I decided it was time to end the ritual. So I was bringing myself back to the here and now. And before I could do that, I got a very clear message that said, my name is Athena, and you walk with my blood in your blood.
Wow. Oh,
And
wow.
I knew then that was going to be the initiate name that I would carry. And it was like it was yesterday, and it was 1,000 years ago at the same time. And I can still see it. I could still feel it. I could almost even still feel the weight of that warrior attire that was on my body. It was heavy. It's amazing how heavy it is when, you used to wear warrior gear on your body. And so I've
And
created
you
a
were
lot of
having
things.
this you were actually outside walking and you were having this at the same time, right? So
Mhm.
this wasn't
Yeah.
just in your mind, because I've had
Mm-mm.
experiences, because I meditate every morning and I go through other places and I meet my sister who has passed. I see her every
Mm.
morning. And I have some spirit guides that show up, and a dragon who showed up a while ago who
Mm.
comes out to me every morning. But I'm home. I'm in my head. I'm in tapping into something else. So I'm not actually physically going anywhere. But you were doing this while you were physically walking out
Yes,
in
but I
your
don't think it's I don't think that it's different. I think that you can go
yeah,
into altered states of consciousness in stillness or in movement. That
yeah.
particular place just happened to be a place that I had regularly visited because I knew that it had some like magical
Wow.
connection. And I was
Yeah.
really open to those experiences then because I was, in initiation with my high
Yeah.
priestess path. I was doing deep work. I was practicing a lot of magic. Like I had set the foundational pieces for me to be able to experience those higher levels of consciousness at that point.
Yeah.
And so it's the same if you're at home and doing that. I don't think that what I experienced, even though maybe it was more deep and maybe more clear than a dragon
Mhm.
visiting you, I don't think that
Right.
that's any different. I just happened, and I think that Athena, or the energy of Athena, set that up, that she visited me at
Yeah.
a time when I was moving the same way she was, because it was easier
Wow.
for me to accept the
Yeah.
visualization of that I was seeing, because I was walking on a dirt road and she was walking on a dirt road. Now there weren't people lined up on the side of the road where I was walking. There was
Sure.
no people. There were trees,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
but I got to experience, what it's like to be uh, the warrior version of a witch, or the warrior version of a leader. And it's interesting, if I, fast forward a couple of years after that, I had somebody do a very deep Akashic Records reading for me, which I've had two of since then, and they all pull up that lifetime. They
Oh,
all pull up almost
wow.
the same experience of something similar to that. It's very fascinating.
It is. It sounds very, very powerful. And if you look
Hmm.
up Athena, anybody who's interested, you could see what the goddess of Athena and what she represents, right? I mean, because I think many of us who have know or aware of the gods and goddesses have heard the name Athena before.
Yes, and I didn't. I mean, I had to go do what you're doing. I had to go look it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I had heard Athena. I didn't
Right.
know her. I would not have known the warrior aspect of Athena. I just would not have it. At
Yeah.
that point, I had not done a
Yeah.
lot of like one-on-one work with specific gods or goddesses. I have now, and I have an extensive, library of knowledge in my brain. But
Yeah.
at that time, when I got back to my vehicle right after that, the first thing I did is open my phone and go in and Google Athena, because I wasn't
I
sure what
love
was
that.
happening. And what
Right.
else I did is I use a video messaging chat service with my friends and my sister witches, and I pulled it up and I sent a message to one of my sister witches, and I'm like, okay, this just happened. I didn't know this. Like, can you give me some feedback?
Wow.
Can you tether me to truth here? Can you tether me to,
Yeah.
how does this work and what happened? And I didn't know then what I know now about Athena. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's what a gift that you got to have that experience, and that opened up that whole deeper um, experience for you. I love that.
Well,
So
even think about it like this. Like, sorry, I'll just say that experience now allows me to gift it to others,
right.
because, right, a lot of people want to experience something that I just described, and they'll immediately think, oh, I'm not that special, or I don't know enough. And the truth is, anybody can experience that type of shift in consciousness and have communication from more than just humans in your world. And I believe that experience, even though I have had several since then, that experience put me into the position of being able to do it to others. Let me rephrase that: put me into the position. I'm just kind of connecting with Athena now to see the best way to say it. Gave me enough experience and reclamation of my own power to lead others to experience that same type of magic. So, and I think that that's important, because we all have different purposes here. And I know one of my purposes in this lifetime is to show others their own power and their own sovereignty. And I do it through those types of experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes when you don't know anything, you're more open to
Hmm.
allowing whatever shows up, right? Because sometimes when we think we know too much, then we interpret it and we're like, oh, it's because of this. But when you don't know, you're just so open. You're like an open channel. Okay, what's going to show up here, right? Which is kind of cool.
So
I love
true.
that.
So true. Yeah,
So,
I even
do
think
you
that a
think
lot of,
everyone
go ahead.
has psychic gifts? Because I do.
Yes.
I personally think, but I think a lot of people close that door on themselves. What do you think
Well,
about
let's
that?
boil it down to the baseline of psychic and spiritual gifts. I use
Okay.
those words interchangeably, but let's boil it
Okay.
down to the very baseline of that is intuition.
Intuition.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that's the foundational, innate. Everybody has it. We've all felt it. And I have not met a human that has not felt their intuition at some stage in their life, truly.
True. True.
And
Yeah.
that is the foundation to your spiritual and psychic gifts. So if everybody has intuition, then it's just a matter of, it's like a path. And I'm using hand motions now, like you can see me and you can't. if you
Okay.
think of intuition as the seed, right? And your spiritual gift grows, or your psychic gift will grow like a flower, which is very unique to you. It depends on how you water the soil. It depends on how you tend to the roots. It depends on how much time you give it out in the sun, right? That's everyone.
Mm. I agree with that so much. And I think that we've been conditioned to shut down our intuition in a lot of ways, and everybody's has this story, especially if you're old enough, where you've met somebody and something about them feels off, but you don't trust it because everybody say, oh no, they're a great guy or they're a great girl, they're a great person. And then you come to find out later, you see them for who they truly are and you didn't trust what your intuition told you right from the beginning, right? And you're like, oh,
Hmm.
I should never have trusted that person. Why didn't I listen to that feeling? That's your intuition. That's
Hmm.
your higher self, or whatever you want to call it, talking to you, right? That's your psychic abilities showing up. So
Hmm.
we have to listen to that more. So, what would you tell somebody who right now is listening? And, in the beginning of the show, I talk about manifesting and I use the postcards, but like, what kind of rituals do you think people can do every day to kind of connect to manifesting energy, to keep us in that
Well, let's
kind of
start with the
energy?
intuition piece. Let's talk about the
Okay.
intuition piece because I do think that
Hmm.
that's really important. And when anyone starts to really understand the power that they have in their intuition, it's almost like a doorway to more powerfully to be able to manifest more powerfully because you know that you're
Hmm.
aligned, right? And so
Mm.
intuition, and one thing that I experience a lot in the thousands of people that I teach these practices to is a lot of times our intuition gives us information that isn't easy to implement,
Right.
meaning we ignore our intuition half of the time because it tells us something that really we don't want to hear. It's,
Yeah,
right? Like
right.
it's like if our intuition is giving us an icky feeling about somebody that we've been friends with for 20 years or somebody in our
I
family
know.
or a new neighbor that moved in, okay, then you have to go to the human side and address your people pleasing patterns or your
Hmm.
beliefs about wanting to be liked or making other people happy. And I feel like that piece, when people start to address the fact that your intuition is not always going to give you the green light, it's also going to give you the red lights. And
Yes.
a good way to think of it is acknowledging that you have an intuitive hit doesn't mean you have to do something about it right then. It just
True.
means acknowledging it. That's how you strengthen the intuitive muscle is you acknowledge it. Now, what you do with that down the road is different than saying, I feel this thing. Because the moment you ignore this thing that you feel, see, hear, or smell, the
Yeah.
moment you ignore that, you're turning the volume down.
Yeah.
So I teach it as it's important to acknowledge everything that you feel intuitively and write it down. And you can contemplate the outcome of what you're going to do about that down the road if it feels hard. It doesn't mean action, but acknowledging it goes a long, long ways because even if you just sit with it for a little bit, especially if it's the red lights, if you sit with it
Mhm.
for a little bit, it shows itself more clearly. So let's say for the example I gave, let's say you have a friend that you've had for 20 years, but the last year, every time you talk to them or see them, you leave with an icky feeling in your belly and
Yeah.
you're a loyal person and you love that person, but they've kind of been nasty and they've hurt your feelings, but you value loyalty and really at the base of that, you don't want to be alone. So of course you're going to like keep
Yeah.
this friend, but intuitively that doesn't feel the same that it used to. So if you go and journal on that and write that down, and intuitively I'm feeling this, it doesn't feel aligned, but I'm concerned about this and this, but I acknowledge I'm feeling this. I'll let myself experience more signs, more intuitive knowing before I take any action. And then you will. Then you will see, hear, know, or feel what would be the next right step. But if you ignore it, it's like putting a blanket on it. So to start, to me, and now the yeses of intuition we kind of don't even need to talk about because it's usually really easy to take an action.
They're really easy, yeah.
They're easy. But that is a really good starting place for manifesting, because I think that the most difficult thing in spell work, in manifesting, in ritual work is actually knowing what you want, like with clarity, with clear, solid clarity. And if you don't have that, it's a lot more difficult to manifest or put a strong spell behind it. So when you use your intuition, your spiritual gifts, your psychic gifts to bring clarity into what you want, the rest actually becomes easier. Those are like the two hardest pieces, the spell work and the manifesting after that. Well, I call that the details. That's the follow-up checklist. Those are the things to do.
Those are the things, the action steps, right? Yeah, that you need to take.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, I use now. I've been using it for years. A pendulum a lot. If I'm, and just kind of like feel what that feels like, and I do a lot of like body swaying and stuff. But a little
Mm-hmm.
thing that I discovered, which I thought is really kind of interesting, and I'm not saying to do this for many big life decisions, but let's just say you have a question about something, like should you go this way or should you go this way? I swear, flipping a coin, and I'll tell you why. Because a millisecond before it lands, you want it to land a certain way. If you
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to that, it's a millisecond, just a
Mm.
millisecond. Like, oh, heads is this, tails is this. And I notice that if I do that, I'll be like, there'll be a flash where I'll see heads. Like I want it to be heads. Then I know I'm not, and that's how I strengthen that little bit of I call them like flashes in my gut. Like, oh, this is the way that I should go. But like, yeah, I'm
I
not
love
gonna
it.
say like if you want
Mm-hmm.
to leave your CEO job of making 10 million a year to working at the cafe, making $18 an hour, please don't like
Well,
take more
wait. I mean,
yeah,
first of all,
take more
that's amazing.
consideration than that.
Yes, and that's absolutely amazing. I love that. And actually, what I think you're doing is you're using something, an extension outside of you, to express what you already feel inside of you.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
using a coin to do that. And in my book, I talk about, I give a full ritual on how to understand when your body is a yes and when your body is a no.
Yes.
And that's something that can be practiced. And I'm happy to share it now if you'd like, because I think it's a
I would
really
love
helpful
it.
tool to learn. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the ritual is you commit yourself to doing, 10 to 15 minutes of this work every day for 21 days. And you're priming your body to be the pendulum. And it doesn't require movement. It doesn't require anything other than knowing what a yes and a no feels like. But that takes practice because we ignore that a lot. We don't know how to tap into it. And a lot of people are very disconnected from their bodies. But this is a really simple way to safely come to your body and decide what's a yes and what's a no. And the ritual is you spend the first part of this 10 to 15 minute period of time speaking aloud questions that you know are a yes. So let's use me for an example. It would be something like, is today Wednesday and a beautiful sunny day outside? And then I would say yes. And then I bring my hands against my body. I prefer one on my belly, one on my chest. And I say out loud, this is what a yes feels like. And I continue that for the first 10 to 15 minutes, questions over and over again that I know are a yes. Like use ones that, you can use historic ones, you can use ones about yourself, ones about the world. Speak the question, say yes, and then prime your body by saying, this is what a yes feels like. Then you need to get up and move your body and shake a little bit and sit back down and do the same thing with questions that are a no. So for example, I might say, is there going to be a thunderstorm today? No. put my hands on my body. This is what a no feels like. And if you do this priming exercise 15 to 20 minutes a day for 21 days, then wait a week. And the week after, when something comes up, maybe not a decision to quit your $10 million CEO job, I might do that more
Right.
than once.
Right.
But let a question come into your field where all you do is close your eyes, put your hands back in that same place on your body, and ask, is this a yes or is this a no? And trust the first feeling that you have, and it will never be wrong. Never.
I love
Prime your
that.
body. It's like your body is a pendulum. And now not all questions can be answered with a yes and a no. So I would say the way that you perfect that. So if you want to extend this ritual, do 21 days of priming, and don't try to use your body in that. Use your body as a pendulum.
Yeah.
I mean, use your body in all
Yeah.
the ways you want. Other than that,
Right.
determine the yes or no for the first 21 days. The next 21 days, test easy, simple yes or no questions that are real in your life and follow what you get. So that's 21 days of priming, 21 days of testing. And then the next 21 days, start perfecting your question. Because a lot of times we don't ask good questions. So ask deeper questions. Ask questions that have a little bit more on the line, right? A little bit deeper, things that might make you a little nervous to actually ask and know the answer to. A lot of people don't ask the questions because they're a little afraid of what the actual answer will be.
Of course.
Yeah.
I
So
do
those are
that
like
too.
21 days, right? 21
Sometimes
days
with
of
my
priming.
pendulum, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to ask yet. I'm not ready.
Yeah. Hey, listen, let that be okay. There's lots of questions
Yeah.
I'm not ready to ask too. And 21 days of priming, 21 days of testing, and then 21 days of perfecting and refining your question. And that right there will change everything.
Love that. I love that. That's just another tool that you can add for anybody listening
Mm-hmm.
to opening yourself up to your spirituality, to connection with the consciousness and everything. Because really, that's what you're doing. I do that. I sway. I've done the sway test for years now, right? So I always start out with I say my name, I sway forward. I say somebody else's name, I sway backwards, and it's really gotten strong because I've done it for so many years.
Mm.
And do you know I do it with supplements? I hold a
Mm.
supplement in my hand and I ask if it's for me or not. And the reason that I trust it is because I don't know. I don't know. So I'm not attached to a yes or a no. And that has served me really well. I use it a lot for so do I need this supplement? Does my body need this supplement? And I allow it to tell
Amazing.
me if it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I have no attachment. Like if I ask myself, you want an extra $100,000 in your bank account, of course I'm going to say yes. But what do I need to do to get there? Could be yes or
But
no.
that's
You know
why I
what
was
I mean?
saying, like,
Yeah,
that's when you start to refine your question, because you wouldn't ask
exactly.
that question because you already know
Right.
the answer to it. And the second
Right.
way that you said that, the how do I do that, is not a yes or no question.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you start to trust
Then you
how your
call a witch.
body feels, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
love
Yeah.
I love that. So I have to we only have a couple of minutes, but I have to talk about your book. So
Mm.
Sacred Magic, A Witch's Guide to Earth Wisdom. So you have how many books? There's a series, right? Is this a series, this book?
Y- Yes, and only book one is out. That's the first book in
Okay.
the
Oh,
series.
okay.
It
Okay.
is. It's what I aimed to do in this book is take everybody into the north on the elemental wheel of life. And in the north is the element of earth, and it's the season of the soul of winter. It's the time of deep rest, of reflection, of strengthening your roots. And I share lots of rituals and spells, but I also share a lot of deep stories of transformation, both mine and others that I've experienced, because I haven't always gotten it right. And I've been through a lot of, deep trauma, as we all have. And most of those deep traumas have led to another layer of growth and magic within me. And so I share a lot of very personal experiences of big magic, of times of pain, of times of expansion, and what it's like to walk this path on a day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope everyone will check it out. It's a labor, as you know, books are a labor
Right.
of love.
Of love.
But this
Yeah.
is also something that I have infused it, and I have consecrated it, and I have given it magic for everyone to receive. So when you open the book, what you take from that book is going to be perfect for you. And there's little hidden codes in the cover and inside the book. There's a lot of little magical, oracle codes hidden that you will come across, and it will create an activation in you, even if that wasn't something you were looking for. It will.
Oh, I love that. And you know what, Tahverlee, truthfully, I don't trust anybody that hasn't been through the shit. Sorry. Like
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's out preaching and saying, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this," and meanwhile they've had like this charmed, entitled life, and they haven't been through any kind of trauma or pain. I'm like, yeah, no, you're not. You're not for
Mm-hmm.
me. But it was
Yeah.
such a great. Oh, I love talking to you today. And guys, please go to her website, moontempleschool.com, and check out more about Tahverlee and reach out to her if you want to join her school or get her book. Thank you so much. It was so fun talking
Thank
to you
you.
today.
Thank
All right,
you. Thank you.
everybody. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, love, peace.